The return to the Oval Office in 2025 hit the nation like a thunderclap. Few had expected it, and even fewer knew how to feel about it. In diners, living rooms, and newsrooms across the country, the same question echoed: what now? The past years had been a whirlwind of political battles, economic swings, and social unrest. For some, his comeback felt like vindication. For others, it was a step backward. But for everyone, it was undeniable. He was back. Determined to reshape his image, the president launched a national tour of town halls, not just in bustling cities but in small, forgotten places like Maple Creek. Nestled miles from the nearest interstate, Maple Creek was a postcard town. Quiet streets, mom-and-pop shops, and a courthouse that had stood watch over the town square for generations. It was a place where everyone knew everyone's name, and gossip traveled faster than Wi-Fi. That spring morning, the courthouse lawn buzzed with anticipation. Rows of folding chairs stretched across the grass, flanked by fluttering American flags. Volunteers in campaign shirts passed out bottled water while local reporters jotted notes, their cameras set up to capture the president's every word. Families came out, some curious, others skeptical, and a few just wanting to say they'd seen history up close. Among the crowd stood Marcus, a 10-year-old black boy with tightly braided hair and an expression far too serious for his age. He stood at the front, hands clasped in front of him, watching the empty podium like a hawk. While adults chatted around him, some praising the president's resilience, others quietly venting their frustration, Marcus remained silent, focused. The murmurs turned to cheers as the president finally appeared, flanked by aides and Secret Service agents. He wore his signature dark suit and a bright red tie, the very image of confidence. He waved, smiled, and climbed the small stage with the ease of someone who'd done it 1,000 times before. Love him or hate him, one thing was certain: the man knew how to command attention. "Good morning, Maple Creek," he called, his voice carrying across the lawn. The crowd responded with polite applause, though pockets of genuine enthusiasm stood out. He dove into his speech, ticking off achievements and future plans with practiced precision. Tax breaks for small businesses, infrastructure projects, a renewed focus on national security. Every pause invited applause, though some clapped more out of politeness than conviction. Marcus didn't clap, he simply watched. The president's voice grew more passionate as he spoke of restoring American pride and reclaiming the greatness that had been lost. His words rolled smoothly like waves crashing on a shore, rehearsed yet effective. But Marcus didn't seem impressed. He was waiting. Then came the Q&A. An aide moved through the crowd with a wireless microphone, offering it to anyone brave enough to speak. Questions flowed about health care, veterans' benefits, school funding. The president answered each with his trademark mix of charm and assertiveness, sprinkling in anecdotes and catchphrases that drew laughter and applause. But when the aide reached the front row, Marcus raised his hand. The aide hesitated. What could a child possibly ask the president? But the boy's expression didn't waver, and after a moment's pause, the microphone was passed down. The crowd quieted, curious. Cameras pivoted. Even the president leaned in slightly, intrigued by the unexpected questioner. Marcus held the mic close, his voice steady and clear. "You're not the president." The words sliced through the air like a knife. For a moment, time froze. Conversations halted. A man in the second row blinked, mouth hanging open. Someone near the back laughed awkwardly, but most simply stared, caught between disbelief and fascination. On stage, the president stiffened. His eyes narrowed slightly, the polished veneer cracking for a heartbeat. In years past, this would have been the spark for a fiery retort, a sharp dismissal. But something in the boy's unwavering gaze held him back. Instead, he stepped away from the podium, closing the gap between them. His expression softened, not into a smile, but into something rarer: curiosity. "You think a title alone makes someone president?" he asked, voice quieter now, more personal. "It doesn't. Being president means carrying the weight of every decision, knowing you'll never please everyone. It's about responsibility, not just power. And I've taken that responsibility, whether people like it or not." The crowd murmured, shifting uneasily. But Marcus didn't flinch. "Anyone can claim power," the boy shot back, gripping the microphone tighter. "That doesn't make them a leader." Gasps rippled through the audience. A woman near the back clutched her chest, while an elderly man muttered, "Well, I'll be damned." But the president didn't react with anger. He nodded, slowly, thoughtfully. "You're smarter than most adults I've met," he admitted. "And you're not wrong. A true leader earns trust, not by standing behind a podium, but by showing up, day after day, even when it's hard, even when people doubt you." Soft applause broke out, hesitant but growing. The president glanced around, surprised by the warmth of the response. His tone shifted, losing its campaign polish, becoming rawer, more honest. "I used to think leadership was about winning," he continued, voice lowering as if speaking just to Marcus. "About beating the other side. But I've learned the hard way. It's about listening, especially to voices like yours. If I can't listen to a boy brave enough to challenge me, then maybe I'm not the president you deserve." The crowd erupted. Not the choreographed applause of a political rally, but something real, respectful, almost relieved. Reporters scrambled, cameras flashing as they captured the moment. Even the Secret Service agents, usually stone-faced, exchanged brief, curious glances. But Marcus wasn't done. "If you really listen," he asked, "why do so many people say you only care about yourself?" The president froze. For the first time, the old defensiveness flickered across his face. Jaw tightening, eyes narrowing. Old habits, hard to break. But then, just as quickly, he exhaled, shoulders dropping. "Because sometimes they're right," he admitted, the words landing like a hammer. "Politics can make you forget why you started. Maybe I've spent too much time fighting critics and not enough time building bridges. Maybe I've said things just to win. But I'm trying. Every day I'm trying to be better, not for me, for all of you, for kids like you." The applause that followed wasn't just louder, it was charged, electric. Marcus, still holding the mic, blinked rapidly, as if processing the weight of the exchange. He didn't smile. He didn't look triumphant. He simply nodded, like someone who had gotten the answer he needed, even if it wasn't the one he expected. Slowly, he handed the microphone back and returned to his seat. The crowd parted for him, many offering quiet nods of respect. The president watched him go, standing silently for a moment before stepping back behind the podium. "That," he said, "is what democracy looks like. A kid in the front row holding the most powerful man in the country accountable. And you know what? That's exactly how it should be." The final applause was deafening, echoing through the square long after the last words had been spoken. As the motorcade rolled away and the crowd dispersed, conversations buzzed. Not about policies or campaign promises, but about a boy named Marcus and the president who, for once, didn't fight back but listened. In a world obsessed with titles and power, that moment stood apart, proof that leadership isn't claimed, it's earned. And sometimes it takes the quiet courage of a child to remind everyone of the truth.